In this presentation, Recovering Your Retirement Dreams, we're going to examine the external pressures, autopilot spending, and management of government entitlement programs that will impact you and your retirement. What we hope to show you is that it may not be the amount you're saving for retirement, but where you're saving it that matters most. Let's be clear that this is not a political presentation, and that many experts believe it's time for U.S. citizens to wake up and realize the significant pressures that will impact both tax-deferred qualified plans as well as Social Security. This presentation will show you ways to potentially insulate yourself from these overwhelming issues. The federal government's financial condition is much worse than advertised. The current liabilities and unfunded promises of the United States government are $61.9 trillion. That number is comprised of three significant categories. The first, $38.2 trillion, is comprised of promised Medicare benefits, not covered by taxes and other contributions. The second component, $7.7 trillion, is comprised of Social Security benefits, not covered by taxes and other contributions. And the last component, $16 trillion, is comprised of other federal liabilities. And the liabilities and promises continue to dig us deeper into debt each year by another $2 to $3 trillion. Sometimes we just throw large numbers around, but don't have any idea of how much money we're actually talking about. So if we had $1 bills, and starting on the surface of the earth, we were to stack up those dollar bills totaling $1 trillion, it would stretch 67,000 miles into space. In comparison, commercial jet planes fly around 30 to 40,000 feet, which is about 7 miles high. To get to the moon, it would only add up to over $3.5 trillion. And to represent our entire unfunded liabilities, it would reach over 4 million miles into space, or about 1/10 of the way to Mars. $61.9 trillion is the amount of money the U.S. government would need invested today to pay for our nation's major liabilities. How much of the $61.9 trillion do we have saved today? Zero. So as U.S. citizens, we're all on the hook for the $61.9 trillion deficit. If we wanted to clear off that debt today and spread the cost evenly across all families, each household in the United States would need to write a check for $545,000. Unfortunately, we all know that's not going to happen. Americans just won't be able to wipe out these unfunded liabilities at once. Instead, we're going to need to pay down these debts and unfunded liabilities over time. The most logical payment plan can be accomplished by increasing revenues through higher taxes. We are about to experience one of the biggest generational shifts over the next 20 years. As 77 million baby boomers retire, mandatory federal spending for Social Security and Medicare will grow dramatically, and Social Security will be adding to our national deficit beginning in 2015. A few months ago, the Congressional Budget Office forecast that due to the current economic conditions, Social Security will run cash deficits for the next 4 years. Much of the pressure within the federal budget comes from past decisions to address past priorities. Decisions to enhance existing or to create new entitlement programs means additional financial pressure becomes embedded into the budget until policies are changed. This chart represents the total mandatory federal government outlays for human resource programs, which includes Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. These programs, which are embedded into the budget and written into law, are growing dramatically. As you can see, it takes close to 40 years for the expenditures to reach $1 trillion, and with the baby boomers retiring, we grow another trillion in about 10 years. Speaking of taxes, here's a quote from David Walker, former Comptroller General of the United States. As far as taxes go, the United States would have to raise income tax rates across the board by about 2.5 times today's levels to close the financing gap, and some politicians complain when there is any talk of tax increases. Do you know what tax rate we would be at if we increased the 28% tax bracket by 2.5 times? How about 70%? And at the top tax bracket of 35%, we'd see tax rates as high as 87.5%. So I ask, have we ever seen tax rates that high? Yes, we have seen taxes in the 80 to 90% range. After the Great Depression, as we started to institute new government entitlement programs, we saw a significant spike in the top marginal tax rate. Eventually, our taxes came down to more modest levels. But in looking at this chart, in the present, we are in one of the lowest marginal tax rates in history. Will this trend continue? Most people agree that taxes are likely going up. And if you read page 1 of the Social Security statement, it says that Social Security was never intended to be your only source of income when you retire. Most of us understand that and have taken additional steps to prepare for retirement by saving on our own, probably by using traditional retirement strategies like 401ks or IRAs, what are typically called qualified plans. But should qualified plans be the foundation of your retirement plan? We would say no, because federal taxes are comparably low now, and with the current budget deficits and required spending, it seems highly likely that taxes will climb. And since qualified plans are 100% taxed at the time you take the money out, the old belief that you'll be in a lower tax bracket in retirement also seems unlikely. With the amount of debt we owe, no one can guarantee that tax rates will be lower in the future, so consider other avenues before going into the qualified plan. Here's an example to help illustrate our point about qualified plans that have pre-tax contributions. In this example, let's consider two separate options, both offering tax-deferred growth, but with one option, the contributions go in pre-tax, and in the other, the contributions go in after tax. This is a common chart. When you look at it, you immediately think that the one with the pre-tax contribution would be better because it produces a higher line at the end of the example. But are pre-tax contributions actual tax savings? No, it's simply pushing those taxes off into the future, where we really don't know what future tax rates are going to be. Based on what you've learned so far in this presentation, do you think taxes will be lower or higher in the future? Most people think we'll see higher taxes in the future, and many experts realistically predict a 5 to 10% increase in future taxes to help pay for all the obligations we already owe and to pay down our outstanding budget deficits. So let's consider an example where we start with a traditional qualified retirement account with a $100,000 account balance. For this example, let's assume the client is in a 25% tax bracket, meaning you would have deferred taxes of $25,000. If over a 20-year period of 8% compounding, the entire $100,000 would grow to over $466,000. Now, the portion of this entire account balance that would represent just the tax savings grows to over $116,000, and initially, that seems like a pretty good thing. But you should be thinking of those perceived tax savings in a different way. It's more like taking a loan from the government on your qualified retirement plan. Remember, with qualified retirement accounts, you still owe money to the government. Qualified plans don't eliminate taxes, they just defer them. Now, the biggest concern you might have is that you don't know what interest rate you're going to pay on the loan because future taxes are unpredictable. So if in the future we see just a 5% increase in the tax bracket, the amount you would owe in taxes when you take your money out would be over $139,000. To figure out just how much you end up paying Uncle Sam for the benefit of using a qualified plan is just a matter of simple math. We subtract $116,000 from $139,000, so we'd be paying over $23,000 in additional taxes. Or if taxes increase 10%, the amount we would owe would be over $163,000, making the true cost of that retirement account a loss of over $46,000 just for the privilege of using a qualified plan. Many people believe they need to drop money into the stock market to prepare for retirement. However, in quantitative analysis of investor behavior, Dalbar concluded that the typical investor only captured about 37% of a market's total return. That means if the market generated a 12% return, the average investor only earned 4.4%. The study also stated that, while it is highly profitable to avoid market downturns, very few investors do this successfully. Unless you can predict when downturns will occur and for how long, the strategy of getting out to avoid a loss does not work. There are many options you can consider to help put you in control of your retirement and insulate yourself from the looming tax traps that lie ahead. First, contrary to popular thinking, you should consider reducing your qualified plan contributions. Because if you use qualified plans, such as 401ks or IRAs, you could be setting yourself up for catastrophic taxes upon withdrawing your money. Instead, you should consider increasing contributions to tax-free retirement income options, such as the Roth IRA and the Family Retirement Plan. The Roth IRA allows individuals to save for retirement, but unlike a traditional 401k, Roth contributions go in after tax. Earnings grow tax-deferred, and withdrawals for retirement are tax-free. tax-free retirement income makes a lot of sense because one of the biggest drawbacks of the traditional 401k is that in retirement, your withdrawals are taxed as ordinary income. Unfortunately, Roth plans come with some significant limitations. First, your annual contributions are limited each year. Second, most Roth IRA accounts are still tied to the volatile and unpredictable stock market. Third, if you make too much money, the U.S. government says you can't contribute to one. And most importantly, you can't take qualified distributions until after age 59 and a half, which means some limited liquidity. A logical alternative to a Roth is what we call the Family Retirement Plan. The Family Retirement Plan is taxed just as a Roth is taxed, where contributions go in after tax, earnings grow tax-deferred, and income at retirement is tax-free. And when properly funded and structured, the key differences with the Family Retirement Plan is that income may be taken at any time. You don't need to wait until after 59 and a half to get at your money. There are no contribution limits, so you can put in as much as you'd like. There is no risk of losing money due to market volatility. And most importantly, should you die prematurely, your loved ones receive additional proceeds above and beyond what you contributed. Here are some changes you might want to consider when it comes to planning for your retirement. Do you want to have tax-free income at any age, especially in retirement? Do you want to take back your retirement from the volatility of the stock market? And do you want to start funding your retirement with after-tax contributions that grow tax-deferred? If you answered yes to any of those questions, you should meet with your Family Retirement Plan advisor to discuss your situation and potential planning steps.